Hello, class. Welcome to the reading review for Pathos, Ethos, and Logos. We'll pick up here on page 29 with reading critically for Pathos. Remember, it's very important that you understand any appeals to feelings or emotion should also be grounded in logic. Otherwise, they could be propaganda and could be an illogical appeal. So when you're reading words that are emotionally charged, understand those appeals to emotion and recognize from a Rogerian argument standpoint, there might be another side to it. So be careful using emotional appeals, appeals to feelings, appeals to emotions, um, images, pictures, colors, links. Think about it. If a link works, it's logos. It's a logical thing to put in an essay. But do you like that the author does the research for you and just puts it there? So all you have to do is click on it. I try to put the links to the essays right on the reading and assignment page if they are online. Some of them are only in the book in the back. Um, but I try to give you the link to the online. Do you like that? Probably, right? It makes it easier to access the essay if you want to read it electronically. If the link didn't work, right, then it wouldn't be a logical appeal, and on top of that, it would have the unintended consequence of ironically not making it easier, making it more difficult. So when you read critically for pathos, look for word choice and look for the emotional associations of words. We call that connotation. Are they positive? Are they negative? Um, and be aware of those appeals to emotion, and hopefully you can discern when those appeals are bordering on propaganda because they don't have any logic supporting them. Um, Whenever we see images specifically that are meant to elicit an emotion out of you, uh, some of the readings will have a picture of the author before you read the document. Again, do you like that? When you look at them, do you kind of have an emotional reaction? Does their picture look formal, or are they smiling? Is it casual? Are they looking happy, sad, angry? Again, these are all appeals because they affect how the information is being received. So it's not just visuals, right? Everything's an argument, whether it's signs and the colors people use, right? Red is supposed to be a color that stimulates your appetite, and yellow gets your attention. They've done all these studies on the emotional associations of colors. Um, so again, as the book's chapter focuses on using emotions to sustain an argument, again, it can be very effective as long as there's logic behind it. The next thing that the chapter discusses is using humor. And be careful with humor because not everybody has the same sense of humor. And it can be very effective as a strategy if it's used correctly. Um, Lastly, using emotions, arguments based on emotion, um, the final section, right? Consider the effect that this can have on your reader, right? When you're trying to evoke what? I like how they end the chapter with that parallel list. Sympathy, right? Evoke means bring out. So they say when you're trying to evoke sympathy, understanding, outrage, or amusement, take care, though, to tell an honest story. And that's why I always suggest anecdotes. Now, when you tell an anecdote of a personal experience or a personal observation or something that you've read, again, you're invoking your ethos, right? And I think that's a good segue here if we turn the page to go from pathos to ethos. So a personal story can be a very effective strategy if it's logical, if it evokes your ethos, right? And if you're using emotions and appealing to the feelings, using appeals to emotions and appealing to the feelings of your readers. Again, starting off your first essay about vegetarianism and the environment, um, as you might want to start thinking about a personal anecdote about what your diet choices are, an example of a meal you've had recently, or a conversation you've had about vegetarianism, or something like that. So personal experience can be very effective as a persuasive technique. So think about including anecdotes in your essays, particularly in the intro and or concluding paragraphs, as they can really help um, evoke emotions, to use the book's words, out of your readers. So now, as we're talking about ethos, it's all about the character, and you want to consider what? Authority. Does this person have the knowledge to make the argument? Does this company have the knowledge to make the argument? Credibility. All right, do I trust them? Are they credible? Right? And lastly, motives. Is it money, or are their motives genuine? Are they trying to sell me something? Right? So when you think of ethos, those are the three things you want to think of: authority, credibility, and motives. Here's a perfect example. Me, right? What is my ethos in? Well, essentially, right, if I'm going to use my authority, credibility, and motives, it would be to appeal to you for English stuff, English nerd stuff. Why? Authority. I have a master's degree in English literature, right, with a specialization in feminist critical theory. Credibility, right? You can go to the English department. It's public knowledge. You can read my evaluations, my observations. My master's thesis is available online, right? If you Google my name and Seton Hall University, it'll pop up, right? Standing before them in boys' trousers was Robin. Possession and gender in Juna Barnes's Nightwood. That's the title of it. Authority, credibility. Now, motives. Okay, I think authority, credibility, right, are it's factual stuff. Now, motives, again, I am getting paid to teach this class, and it is my job. So, is my motive just to keep my job? In some ways, yes. But is it also to genuinely help you get an A? I mean, I think that I have genuine motives, and you might say, well, where's the proof? Right? You're telling me this, Craig. How do I know? Well, I rate my professor. Look, you can't please everybody, and they're not all great, but the majority of them say, I genuinely care. If you do the work, right? You do the readings and you fulfill your obligations, you'll get an A. And I feel as though your grade is a reflection of me as a professor. Now, some people don't get an A, and it's a reflection of the fact that they didn't complete the assignments. Remember, this is a reading and composition class. You got to do the reading and you got to do the writing, got to do the assignments. So when people usually don't get an A, it's because of time management and they didn't have time to do the reading and do the assignments. I can honestly say I've never really had a student who says, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It's pretty clear. This is a good textbook, right? So again, back to my ethos. I'd like to think it's genuine. Now, what about the authors that you read in the textbook and the articles that we read on the internet? Well, there should be a preface in the book that comes before each of the documents. And if you're reading something online and there's not a preface, a little paragraph or sentences before it describing the author, right, and where it might have originally appeared, just Google the author's name and something should come up, and you should be able to better understand their ethos. So if they're appealing to credibility, authority, and motives, it's successful. When you go to a website, if you want to understand the authority and credibility and specifically the motives of a company, usually very down at the bottom, they'll have about us. They'll have a little about us. You can click on that and that'll tell you about the company and the website. So that being said, ethos, very, very important. Make sure when people are claiming authority, it's backed up again with logos, just like with Pathos. You need to have logos to successfully, right, evoke ethos, right? Evoke that appeal to your credibility, your authority, your motives, right? And at the end of the chapter, just like at the end of the chapter on Pathos on page 48, right? Using ethos in your own writing, there's 3 bullet points about establishing your credibility, establishing your authority, and establishing your motives. Please refresh yourself with those 3 bullet points and answer those questions as part of your pre-writing when you're getting ready to start thinking about using ethos in your own writing. Page 48, the 3 bullet points about establishing credibility, establishing your authority, and examining your motives. Now, that brings us to logos. And this one's simple: logic, facts, examples, details, things that can be proven. It's that simple, right? MLA format, the fact that you have to put the page or the paragraph number in parentheses with the author's last name when you quote something before the period, right? It's a fact. So there's really no room for, well, I didn't want to use MLA format, right? When we get into MLA format, so there's certain things that are factual that um, are appeals to logic because they can be proven, because they're actual examples, right? And when you bring in sources and quote from those quotes are your appeals to logos, right? And if the source is credible, that's you using ethos, right? And if that appeals to your reader's emotions, that quote and that citation of that source and your relation of that source to your purpose, you're commenting on that source, right, is going to effectively bring the appeal to ethos, logos, and pathos all together. So these all work as one. And when you're bringing in sources and commenting on them, when you're writing about yourself with anecdotes, when you're bringing in examples and facts, you're appealing to all of those things: ethos, logos, pathos, and last but certainly not least, right, is Kairos. And it's quite simply timing, right? The book explains to us that Kairos, right, in Greek mythology, if you caught Kairos, you seized the moment. Is it the right time and place and context? Time, place, context, the environment, right? If you're appealing to people in a certain geographic area or a certain age group, right, or a certain particular political affiliation, right? Kairos is all about seizing the moment to make your appeal most effective. Because as we know, rhetoric, right, the art of persuasion, and these rhetorical strategies are meant to persuade logically and effectively. So, hopefully, you're feeling more confident about ethos, logos, pathos, and Kairos. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for your patience.